verse, check out that wordplay.
Good morning, everyone. One day closer to Friday, the weekend. It's Thursday. Kerry champion Skip Bayless, Bristol, Connecticut, where it's fairly cool. It feels good outside. Stephen A. Smith, he's in Chicago. Surprise, surprise. How are you? How's the Windy City?
Good morning. How y'all doing? How's everything?
We're good. How are you in Chicago?
Oh, it's a disastrous. I was running out to catch a flight yesterday. I forgot my makeup. I forgot my clothes. I forgot everything. I forgot everything trying to catch my flight. So, needless to say, I'm a bit shabby this morning. Y'all are going to have to forgive me.
I would have never noticed.
I would have never noticed. You look fine to us.
You just look sensational.
No, Kerry. Skip means it differently. He's saying he wouldn't have noticed because I look no differly as if to imply
I was being nice.
That's what he's trying to do.
I was actually being nice, too.
Okay, all right. Well, we're glad to have you no matter what, minus makeup and everything else. Coming up on the show today, we react to the playoff games and look ahead to tonight's game as well. But first, Tom Brady is getting advice from a guy who knows all about battling the NFL. Jonathan Velma told our Ed Warder through a text message what he believes Brady should do. Take a look. I tell Brady to fight the emotion of defending himself publicly, lawyer up, and begin to devise a game plan to beat the NFL through the court system. However, he adds that Brady will face a different challenge because Goodell led the investigation on Bountygate, unlike Deflategate led by Ted Wells. Vilma went on to say, we based our argument off of Goodell being the face of the Bountygate witch hunt. He hasn't done that this time around. I don't know how he accuses Goodell of being too biased to the arbiter. I was able to prove he was biased and then let all the facts start coming out in a neutral setting. All right, so that's advice. We had Velma on the show, actually, and he talked about it. So, Skip, do you agree with what he is actually telling Tom Brady to do?
Stephen A. Smith, as you recall, I was with Jonathan Vilma throughout the entire Bountygate controversy, and I am with him now. We've had Jonathan sit right here on this show. I've gotten to know him a little bit. This is a tough-minded, strong-minded, high-principled man who went to battle against Roger Goodell. As you recall, and Kerry just alluded to, he sued Roger Goodell. He won the right to a truly independent arbitrator, not some Harold Henderson from the league office. He got the ex-commissioner Paul Tagliabue to review the case of Bountygate, and Paul Tagliabue made Roger Goodell look foolish because he rescinded all of these suspensions, including Jonathan Vilma's. So Vilma sued, got an injunction, and got to play, and then won the battle against Roger Goodell. And he's exactly right now, Stephen A. Let your lawyers speak loudly for you, and if it comes to it, in court. As you know, I'm a Tom Brady fan, and I feel like right here, right now, Stephen A., I owe Mr. Brady an apology. I was with you from day one, the day after the Wells investigation was released, the report. I was with you in spirit because I wanted my guy Tom Brady to please stand up and speak out, and he wouldn't do it. We saw him at Salem State University. He was still mealy-mouthed. He was still, golly gee, we'll see. He was still shrugging it off. And you said, and I agreed with you, it's time to defend yourself, just as you, Stephen A. Smith, would have stood up and spoken loudly to defend yourself if you felt you had been wrongly accused. I would have stood up and defended myself in the same circumstance. But listen, I think Tom Brady might just have the last laugh here. He's doing it the right way. He's doing it the legal way. And I think his actions through court, through his legal team, will speak much louder than he could in public. Again, I wish just for the spirit of it. We're going to deal with this question later. Has his image been permanently tainted? We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Now we have a new ABC poll that indicates it probably has been. I'm with you on that, Stephen A. But again, who's going to have the last laugh here? Who's going to be vindicated in the end? I think Tom Brady is now going about it the right way, the way he does on the football field, which is to let your game speak for you, or in this case, let the facts that you know that you're going to exhibit in court speak loudest for you. So I am so with Jonathan Vilma. I'm glad he said what he said. and I apologize to Tom Brady. Again, I don't know whether he's innocent or not.
Right.
But I want him to have his day in court, and apparently he is going to get it.
Time out. So you're saying Jonathan Vilma, what he said actually changed your perspective on how Brady should...
Just the whole last 3 days. And again, I don't want to beat this to death, but I've talked to several confidants close to Brady, and they say he is insisting he is 100% innocent and wrongly convicted here.
Okay.
And that has changed my perception, just to fall back and say, I'm still open-minded.
Okay.
Now, again, maybe I'm not objective, because you well know for years and years on this show I've been a Brady fan and Brady supporter, New England supporter, but I'm now open-minded to hearing what Tom Brady and company and legal team have to say in court. I'm not going to leap to the conclusion that he's a cheater just yet. Maybe in the end I will.
Okay.
But right now he deserves his day in court, and Jonathan Vilma is correct. He's going to get it.
All right, Stephen A. So Skip is saying that he's holding off on judgment. He likes what Jonathan Vilma had to say, and it changed his perspective as to how Tom Brady should go about it. Your take? Do you agree with Vilma?
No, I don't. I don't agree with Skip Bayless either. And let me say this. I mean, I don't understand why you're apologizing. What are you apologizing for? Just for keeping an open mind? I mean, I don't think the apology is necessary. Let's see how everything transpires and what the ultimate conclusion is before we dole out apologies. When I apologized to the New Orleans Saints and Jonathan Vilma and Drew Brees and everybody else, it was in the aftermath of Vilma going through the court system. It was in the aftermath of a verdict. It was in the aftermath of Paul Tagliabue making the decision that he made that made Roger Goodell look foolish. It was in the aftermath of all of that. Prior to that, you know, silly me, I was of the conclusion that the NFL, being a multi-billion-dollar establishment, would make sure that their investigators are top-notch and that they had dotted all their I's and crossed all their respective T's. And particularly as it pertained to Bountygate, that did not appear to be the case. But I think it's important in this particular sequence, Skip Bayless, to highlight the discrepancies, or rather the differences, between Bountygate and Deflategate. Bountygate, you essentially had a situation where Roger Goodell and the NFL surmised that Greg Williams, the former defensive coordinator, obviously was essentially putting bounties and hits out on opposing players. Greg Williams definitely acquiesced to that, you know, those accusations. He confirmed it because he certainly didn't deny it. He certainly dimed other people out. Ultimately, it cost Sean Payton a year of his career as a head football coach, simply because, you know, of his dereliction of duty as a head coach, because obviously Greg Williams worked under him. Mickey Loomis, the general manager, it cost him 8 games because, you know, he's a leader within the organization, and it was his job as well to pretty much streamline this kind of stuff and reel these boys in. Jonathan Vilma fought because Jonathan Vilma was saying, I'm a football player. I went out there to play football. I did not go out there to intentionally hurt anybody. I did not have any bounties on individuals. How dare you accuse me of such an egregious and an unethical thing? And obviously he was in a position to do that. In this particular instance, Skip Bayless, the footballs were deflated. There is no denying that. And because there's no denying that the footballs are deflated, now it becomes an issue as to whether or not Tom Brady knew about this and condoned this. That really is the issue in question. Now, he can sit there and deny it until the cows come home. But in the end, there is no denying that the quarterback had to know the footballs were deflated. Now, if you want to sit there and debate whether he literally told somebody something or whatever the case may be, okay, fight all day to preserve your reputation, because he certainly had an impeccable one. But there is no denying that 11 of the 12 footballs were below the legal limit. And that's the issue here. Jonathan Vilma was denying that he was a part of a bounty. He was denying that he was a part of something so egregious and so unethical as it pertained to him and who he is and what he stands for. That is a character issue. And obviously you have to have concrete evidence to convict him of that, which is why he was absolutely right to fight it. Because he said, I don't care what Greg Williams or anybody else has to say. I'm telling you what I did not do. That's what I am telling you. So he was in a position of strength. In the case of Tom Brady, the footballs were deflated. You're the quarterback. You touch the football more than anybody. You're the one that gets a snap to you from behind center. You're the one handing it off to running backs. You're the one throwing it to tight ends and to receivers, and in some cases, running backs coming out of the backfield to catch passes. You touch the ball more than anybody. So you can sit there and say, well, I didn't tell somebody something, and it might be an issue of veracity, whether you believe them or don't believe them. But there is no debating that the footballs were deflated. Whereas in the case of Jonathan Vilma, how are you going to beat him at a debate about his character? You don't know what was in his heart. Unless you can find some money trail where he actually received money, it's essentially you saying, oh, you went out there to put a bounty against guys. And Jonathan Vilma saying, no, I did no such thing. This case is entirely different from Bountygate. So his advice is appreciated, but the legs upon which Tom Brady has to stand are considerably more shaky than what Jonathan Vilma had to stand.
Very interesting. I have two quick responses to what you just said. How do you know for sure the footballs were deflated? Because there is a glaring discrepancy in the Wells report we talked about yesterday that Mr. Wells himself failed to answer, handed the phone off to his partner to answer, who gave a very murky, hazy, sort of unconvincing answer about which gauge was used by Walt Coleman, the referee, before the game, and which gauge was then used to measure the footballs at halftime. Was it this gauge or was it this gauge? It's murky. Then I read yesterday this research firm that was hired by the Wells Group and ultimately by the league to verify, evaluate and verify the findings at halftime by the league has come under fire before from critics, including engineers, attorneys, and academics who say the company tends to deliver to clients the reports they need to mount a public defense. This is all going to come up in court. I don't know whether this is true or not, but what I'm saying is all this is still murky to me about whether they were underinflated. Then let me make one last point. It is highly possible that all Tom Brady ever said to those equipment men, those ball boys, if you will, was, I like my footballs inflated at the lower end of regulation. And they took it upon themselves, or maybe they had an order from above to take it down another notch, a step below regulation. How do you know that? The Wells report proves nothing on that account. There is no smoking gun tying Tom Brady to ordering the footballs to be underinflated at below regulation. Sure, he might have said, put them at the low end, but should he be judged guilty off that? That's what they're going to try to prove in court, trust me.
Well, I mean, I definitely understand and appreciate your point, Skip Bayless, but forgive me because I read the report as well, but forgive me for surmising that the one thing that wasn't debatable is that the footballs were deflated.
Well, some weren't, some weren't.
Allow me to finish. What I'm saying to you is that the week before Super Bowl week, Bill Belichick addressed it. The week before Super Bowl week, Tom Brady addressed it. The Super Bowl week itself, Robert Kraft addressed it. And the issue in question was never whether or not the footballs were deflated. The issue in question was what level of guilt should be attached to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick for the footballs actually being deflated. So I just glossed over the issue of actual deflation of the football.
Okay.
I've been assuming that everyone understood that 11 of the 12 footballs were deflated. The only issues in question was whether or not Tom Brady and Bill Belichick directly or indirectly had something to do with it. So
okay.
I'm not even going, I mean, all the stuff that you just dropped from the Wells report, I'm not going to dispute any of that. I am telling you that Tom Brady, I never once heard him deny that the footballs were deflated. I never once heard Bill Belichick deny that the footballs were deflated. A matter of fact, what I recall was Bill Belichick giving some kind of, and he was far from a scientist, as he openly admitted, but he was giving reasons as to why the footballs may have been deflated.
No.
So, I mean, what do you want me to say?
Okay.
I can't make an argument that the footballs weren't deflated.
But if you carefully read the Wells report, one gauge had them properly inflated and a second gauge had them underinflated. Well, I don't know. Look, I don't know. But this is going to have to be proven in a court of law at some point.
Well, look, so to that end, gentlemen, you guys are already taking us there. Let's consider the next step. Meanwhile, our Lester Munson says if Brady and his unreal legal team decide to sue the league, there will be a series of challenges for the quarterback. More than likely, they will not pan out in Brady's favor. Let's listen to what he had to say earlier on Mike and Mike.
I can easily see that Brady and his lawyers may decide to sue the National Football League. I have serious doubts about whether Brady can succeed in such a lawsuit, and I think that Brady and his group should very carefully consider what might happen in the lawsuit. In the Theodore Wells investigation, Brady did not give up his cell phone. He did not give up his emails. He did not give up his text messages. He stonewalled the investigators for the NFL. He will not be able to do that in any lawsuit, so that when the NFL defends itself in the lawsuit, it will obtain by court process everything that Brady has refused to give up. So things in the lawsuit could become even more incriminating than they were in the original investigation. And I think Brady and his group should very carefully consider that.
He said things could become more incriminating for Brady, but it also works the same way for both sides. Obviously, if he tries to sue the league, they'll have to put some things out as well. All right, so listen, Skip Bayless, your reaction to what Lester Munson has to say.
Stephen A. Smith, my reaction, first of all, is that I've known Lester Munson for a long time, from my days in the town you're in right now, Chi-Town. Lester is brilliant. Lester is a lawyer by trade, and he is a great legal analyst. So I always sit and I listen to the whole interview today on Mike and Mike because it's spellbinding and it's illuminating to me. And his whole idea of fraught with peril, could be a lawsuit, could be disastrous for Tom Brady and company, I completely respect and acknowledge. He brought up the point, we just talked about it, Tom Brady would have to give up his cell phone and his computer records, blah, blah, blah. We get all that. Those two guys in question, those two ball boys, Jim McNally, John Jastrzemski, could they turn on Tom Brady in court, especially McNally, off the texts that we saw, which were very derisive, aimed back at Tom Brady? Oh, he doesn't like his football. Well, watch, I'll give him a rugby ball next time. Well, could that guy turn on Tom Brady and be a very damaging witness against Tom Brady in court? Sure he could. My question to you, Mr. Smith, is this. You don't think that Tom Brady has carefully considered all of the above? The moment he hired Jeffrey Kessler, I said, game on. We talked about him yesterday. Some people in our audience don't know Jeffrey Kessler. I certainly know of him for years and years, having covered the NFL. This man is brilliant as a superstar attorney, and he is unyielding. He is a pain in the behind for the National Football League. He has a long history of taking on and often defeating the National Football League. And Stephen A., my case to you is that there's no way that Jeffrey Kessler would have taken this case if he thought he couldn't win it. If he thought he was fighting a losing battle from Jump Street, there's no way Jeffrey Kessler needs this case. But he reviewed the facts. He obviously had a lengthy discussion with one Tom Brady, who convinced him, the way he's convinced confidants I've spoken to, 100% innocent, wrongly convicted. And Jeffrey Kessler said, I'll take the case. Again, I'm going to reiterate to you, I'm sure Tom's defense will be, I only said from the start of my career, I like them inflated to the lower end of regulation. That's what they will try to prove. The ultimate target here for a Jeffrey Kessler will be none other than the commissioner of the National Football League. It will come down to Kessler versus Roger Goodell in a court of law. Again, they'll sue to get the proper arbitrator in. You know, they'll try to do Harold Henderson, the league man, for the first go-around, and they'll sue to get an objective arbitrator, and I don't know who that'll be. Maybe it'll be Paul Tagliabue again for round 2. I don't know. But in the end, I think Goodell's job could be on the line here. Certainly his credibility could be back on the line. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, my thought is your point about Jeffrey Kessler means absolutely nothing to me. Keep in mind that Jeffrey Kessler historically works for unions, not individual players. And if I remember correctly, I think it's the union who brought Kessler in, not Tom Brady. That's point number one.
No,
point
it was Tom Brady's choice. Trust, I know for a fact that Tom Brady did his homework and asked around, and everybody said, you got to get Jeffrey Kessler.
Well, everybody always, but I'm saying to you, everyone with the union historically says Jeffrey Kessler. And Jeffrey Kessler has never seen a case he doesn't think he can win. That's point number 2. Point number 3, his targeting Roger Goodell, it's another way, and I'm not knocking the union strategy here, so I don't want it to come across as if I'm sitting there and saying something negative about the union, because I have no problem with them whatsoever, and I have no problem with what they're doing. But if this somehow impugns the integrity of Roger Goodell and sort of dissipates his power to some degree. In other words, if through this case the union somehow, some way is able to diminish his level of power, ultimately accomplishing something that they couldn't pull off during collective bargaining negotiations, that's just another, another point for them. Make no mistake about it. This is not just about Tom Brady. The union loves being involved in this because they got their behinds handed to them by the National Football League during collective bargaining negotiations, as far as I'm concerned. And as a result of that reality, ever since then, they nip and tuck every chance they get to do something to Goodell because they couldn't pull it off during collective bargaining negotiations. This is another maneuver in that direction, as far as I'm concerned. Excuse me. But in the end, what it comes down to more importantly than anything else, Skip Bayless, is this. You can always make a legal argument, particularly in cases primarily involving circumstantial evidence. Of course, Tom Brady has a case. Of course, Tom Brady can sit there and get his suspension reduced. Of course, Tom Brady can make a case for himself that he was wrongly convicted by the National Football League, etc., etc. We all know this is coming, but Tom Brady still had ample opportunity beforehand to do this, and he dropped the ball in that regard. And so as a result of it, that's going to contribute to this as well. And keep in mind, the courts historically, Skip, are of the mindset that they are hesitant to get involved on this level with these kind of things because this falls directly under the purview of the National Football League. It was collectively bargained. And when you find yourself in a situation where you're bringing the courts involved, they're ultimately willing to push it right back to the National Football League, ergo Roger Goodell. So when you take it into consideration, anything's possible. You can make a case in favor of Tom Brady. We can all make a case against Tom Brady. In the end, Tom Brady's goal is to get the suspension reduced, if not flat out eradicated, so he doesn't have to miss any games. I don't believe he'll pull it off. I believe he might pull off a reduction, but not complete eradication. But the one thing I do know is that half of the football world is going to question your integrity forevermore, and Tom Brady, in part, allowed it to happen.
Okay,
that's
wait a second.
What the bottom line is.
I am completely lost on what you're saying. He had ample opportunity to do what before? To say something publicly?
No, well, I'm just talking about in terms of your testimony to the National Football League, the Ted Wells investigation accusing you of not fully cooperating.
I don't know what his testimony was. Well, it's not included in the Wells report.
Well, what happens is Ted Wells elaborated on what Tom Brady wasn't willing to, in terms of when Tom Brady wasn't willing to show those text messages or those emails. That resonates, Skip Bayless. It certainly resonated with Troy Vincent, the executive VP of the National Football League, who's on the record questioning whether Tom Brady gave full cooperation. So, again, you're talking about the courts. And I'm saying to you, anytime you take something to the courts from a literal and legalese perspective, of course you have a point, Skip, in terms of the suspension ultimately being reduced, if not eradicated. It certainly could happen, although I doubt it will. I think there is a better chance of a reduction as opposed to complete eradication, but it doesn't negate the fact that ultimately the questions that you had about Tom Brady, the questions that I had about Tom Brady, and others, it may not matter to him now, but it's going to matter even more as this drags on.
What I'm hearing back from you right here, right now, is that your mind has been completely closed by an investigation for which the NFL paid almost, or maybe up to $5 million.
No, Skip.
That concluded it's more probable than not that he generally knew about the underinflated footballs.
No, Skip, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is that before an investigation even took place, I came on the air with you right here on this show, and I said to you there is no way in hell that 11 of 12 footballs can be deflated and Tom Brady didn't know. I told you I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I told you I didn't think it warranted a suspension. Just don't tell me he didn't know. You were saying, no, it's not about him. It's about Bill Belichick. And I was saying, no, it's more about Tom Brady because he's the quarterback. So my point is I didn't need the Ted Wells investigation to tell me what it told me. I believed from day one that any quarterback knows that the footballs are deflated. That was my position. And Tom Brady lost me when he tried to act like he didn't know anything. That's where he lost me.
Okay, you know where you lose me? Usually, you're so skeptical and suspicious of these reports commissioned by the National Football League.
I usually am.
Remember the Mueller report on Ray Rice concluded that Roger Goodell, no executive in the NFL office, had any knowledge of the in-elevator video. Remember that? That was the conclusion of that report.
And I didn't believe that for 1 second.
Like, stop it. Yeah, you paid the former FBI director to find that for you, really? And we're all laughing at it or scoffing at it.
Sure.
But now you're taking this one to the bank. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical.
Hold on, wait a minute. Because everything that you're saying is predicated on the investigation because you have a problem with this 4-game suspension based on just the circumstantial evidence without a smoking gun. The difference between your position and mine, just for clarification, is that I don't need, and I never needed the investigation to convince me that Tom Brady knew about deflated footballs. Now, when it comes to the amount of the suspension, that's when I'm influenced by football players who have told me that deflated football gives you an advantage. And it's very, very important. But I have always believed that Tom Brady had to know the footballs were deflated, and to act like you are just an innocent bystander in all of this is utterly ridiculous. I've never needed the Wells investigation to tell me that.
All right, we'll pick this up a little later on. Let's leave it right here. Again, Tom Brady suspended for 4 games. We're talking about the what if. He has a deadline to appeal said suspension, 5 p.m. Eastern today. Obviously, we'll keep you posted. What do you think of Tom Brady's image? It's been tarnished. We want to make sure you get your voice heard as well. Go to the Twitter. Use the hashtag #BradyLosesShine. Vote yes or no, and we'll have the results coming up a little later on in the show. After the break, we're heading back to Chicago. Obviously, Stephen A. is there, but we're talking about the Cavs. They try to close it out tonight on the road, or will Chicago be able to stretch it to 7? The debate on the other side of the break. First take, just getting started. You look fine to us.
You just look sensational.
No, Kerry. Skip means it differently. He's saying he wouldn't have noticed because I look no differly as if to imply
I was being nice.
That's what he's trying to do.
I was actually being nice, too.
Okay, all right. Well, we're glad to have you no matter what, minus makeup and everything else. Coming up on the show today, we react to the playoff games and look ahead to tonight's game as well. But first, Tom Brady is getting advice from a guy who knows all about battling the NFL. Jonathan Velma told our Ed Warder through a text message what he believes Brady should do. Take a look. I tell Brady to fight the emotion of defending himself publicly, lawyer up, and begin to devise a game plan to beat the...
Check out that wordplay.
Good morning, everyone. One day closer to Friday, the weekend. It's Thursday. Kerry champion Skip Bayless, Bristol, Connecticut, where it's fairly cool. It feels good outside. Stephen A. Smith, he's in Chicago. Surprise, surprise. How are you? How's the Windy City?
Good morning. How y'all doing? How's everything?
We're good. How are you in Chicago?
Oh, it's a disastrous. I was running out to catch a flight yesterday. I forgot my makeup. I forgot my clothes. I forgot everything. Trying to catch my flight. So, needless to say, I'm a bit shabby this morning. Y'all are going to have to forgive me.
I would have never noticed.
I would have never noticed you. NFL through the court system. However, he adds that Brady will face a different challenge because Goodell led the investigation on Bountygate, unlike Deflategate led by Ted Wells. Vilma went on to say, we based our argument off of Goodell being the face of the Bountygate witch hunt. He hasn't done that this time around. I don't know how he accuses Goodell of being too biased to the arbiter. I was able to prove he was biased and then let all the facts start coming out in a neutral setting. All right, so that's advice. We had Velma on the show, actually, and he talked about it. So, Skip, do you agree with what he is actually telling Tom Brady to do?
Stephen, you the case of Bountygate, and Paul Tagliabue made Roger Goodell look foolish because he rescinded all of these suspensions, including Jonathan Vilma's. So Vilma sued, got an injunction, and got to play, and then won the battle against Roger Goodell. And he's exactly right now, Stephen A. Let your lawyers speak loudly for you, and if it comes to it, in court. As you know, I'm a Tom Brady fan, and I feel like right here, right now, Stephen A., I owe Mr. Brady an apology. I was, Smith, as you recall, I was with Jonathan Vilma throughout the entire Bounty Gate controversy, and I am with him now. We've had Jonathan sit right here on this show. I've gotten to know him a little bit. This is a tough-minded, strong-minded, high-principled man who went to battle against Roger Goodell, as you recall, and Kerry just alluded to. He sued Roger Goodell. He won the right to a truly independent arbitrator, not some Harold Henderson from the league office. He got the ex-commissioner Paul Tagliabue to review